Okay, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Contemporary Business, Chapters 1, 2, and 4. We're going to cover economic systems, business environments, and social responsibility, and issues in economic problems. So get ready, and we'll go through a good list of about 30 slides here. The first slide is how I start my online in-class. I'll have students get out a piece of paper and a pencil, and I'll put this PowerPoint slide on the screen, and I'll have students select either choice A or choice B, and they will defend their answer in 2 or 3 paragraphs a page. And this is how I start my class. I'll either have them choose choice A, given a large group of people or a society. It is always best for the best and the brightest to make the decisions for the group. If you select that and defend that answer. Or choice B, given a large group of people, it is always better for each individual to make his or her own decision, no matter how smart or how dumb that individual. Well, in the 20th century, the century we just left, actually the wars that were fought over this question was more casualties fell to this answering this question than to all the centuries of mankind before the last century. Choice A is really the philosophy and the underpinnings of a book called El Capital, or Capital, written by Karl Marx. The idea here is the best and the brightest should make the decisions, and that the individual should be subordinated to the group. Choice B comes from a Scotsman by the name of John Locke, who actually wrote that an individual should be entitled to life, liberty, and property. Then a Virginian by the name of Thomas Jefferson, in our founding documents, our Declaration of Independence, plagiarized John Locke completely. In the first draft, he said we should have, as an individuals, we're entitled to life, liberty, and property. But unfortunately, we had slavery, and the Philadelphian and fellow founding father Ben Franklin was editing the first draft of Jefferson, and he says, we can't guarantee property in our founding documents because slaves are property, and we don't want to protect slavery in our founding documents. So here in 2009, we are still living with the vestiges of slavery, because this recent Supreme Court decision weakening property rights for the individual, giving government more power to seize private property for business interest, wouldn't have occurred had we had more protections in our founding documents. So it's kind of interesting. So that's the foundation of the two things. And in extremism and extreme capitalism, that's called laissez-faire capitalism, which would be government keep your hands off, and this would be one end of the continuum, and then the other extreme would be totalitarian communism. I don't think really laissez-faire capitalism is practiced anywhere. If you saw the movie with John Stossel as America Number One, Hong Kong has fewer regulations. New Zealand and Switzerland all are countries that actually have more freedoms now than the United States does. But the United States would still be considered a capitalist society. But we do have some socialism. We have Social Security, and we have regulations on business, so the government is involved. Socialism is kind of an in-between system. Much of Europe has a socialist system. France, Germany would be where the government owns what Lenin called the commanding heights, the largest section of the economy with oil and steel, and would be owned by the government, and private industry would be held in the private sector. Would be small businesses allowed. Communism, there's really only a couple places where full totalitarian communism exists, North Korea and Cuba. China still calls themselves communist, and they do have a totalitarian government, but they're allowing a lot of freedoms in the area of the economy. They've actually opened up to allow profits, and are becoming much more capitalist in their thought. Well, under capitalism, we have the right to private property. So you can own property, and it's your choice as an individual. You can sell it, you can give it away, and you can own property, and you're entitled to that. You're entitled to profits that you earn with your labor and your capital. If you have a good business idea and you're innovative, you can start a business, and you're entitled to the profits. You can choose to start your own business and start your own occupation, or you can choose to go to college and get training and become a doctor, or whatever your dreams are. In a capitalist society, you have the right to choose. In fact, that's one of the books Milton Friedman wrote called Free to Choose. Under socialism, again, the state owns the largest industries, the commanding heights. Profit exists in the private sector, and government can influence one's job choice. And then communism, profits are not recognized. The state owns all industries, and the state decides what you do. And there's under the full communism, an individual has very little freedom. Well, Milton Friedman, of course, is the Nobel Prize-winning economist from the University of Chicago, and has some quotes that I like and I have here. Nothing can do more harm than good intentions. And this is interesting. I give an example of the state of New York has the strictest licensure requirements for electricians. To become an electrician in the state of New York, you have to be an apprentice for a couple of years. You have to set for a real hard test over a couple of days, and you have to pay a $3,500 fee to get licensed. All states have some regulations on becoming an electrician, but they're hardest in the state of New York. So you would think that the state of New York would have the fewest electrical fires per capita. Obviously, Montana is going to have fewer electrical fires because it just has so many fewer people. But this is done on a per capita basis. The fact is that there's more electrical fires, even though they may have the best trained electricians in New York. More people die, more babies are burned to death in a electrical fire in the state of New York. Well, how could that be? Because we have government protecting us, having so many regulations to protect people. Well, with all that protection that the government has, it limits the number of electricians that can pass the test and have the application fee, and so there's fewer electricians. The ones that do pass all that are really good. But with scarcity comes what happens when a product or a good is scarce. Well, there's fewer electricians. That raises the price that they can charge. Well, if you can't afford an electrician, it'll be a do-it-yourself. And when you and your neighbor gets together and does it themselves, and does some wiring that's necessary, you're putting yourself a lot greater risk, and that's why there's more fires there. Then I look at the second quote here: societies that place equality before liberty get neither. That's the tenet of Marxism, of the idea that everybody's going to be equal, nobody's going to be above anybody else. Well, Stalin did make 50 million people equally dead. Societies that put freedom before equality get a good measure of both. And you say, well, capitalist societies like the United States are unfair because there's extremes of extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Well, I don't know that that's the case. Actually, even our poor in America, compared to the rest of the world, do pretty well. The tenet of capitalism is profits. Profits are rewards for the businessman who takes the risk involved in blending people, technology, and information in creating and marketing want-satisfying goods and services that provide customer satisfaction. Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it? A lot to remember. I can shorten that up a little bit for you. Profits are rewards for the risk taker that provides customer satisfaction. And I would argue that the business person who satisfies the most customers will actually be rewarded with the most profit. Somebody with force or fraud can make a short-term profit, but in the long run, someone that really satisfies customers well will make the largest profits and be rewarded with that. Now, your textbook actually defines profit as revenue minus expenses equals the residue. Well, that's true, but I think profits are more than that in the capitalist system. That's just why the profit motive, why we do things, why we're willing to take a risk and be entrepreneurs. Without profits, or the ability to make profits, nobody guarantees you a profit. You can lose money in business as well. But if you do have profit, one of the things I ask students is there such a thing as too much profit? Well, one way to answer that question, is there such a thing as too much profit, would be what do business people do with their profit that they earn? Well, one of the things they can do with profit is they can reduce the prices of their goods. This will allow more people to buy that good. They'll gain market share and increase the usage of the company's products. So that actually raises standard of living because individuals can buy more goods for less money. They can actually pay higher wages and benefits. Managers can decide to use their profit for that. Could we pay higher wages if we're an unprofitable company, we're not making money? Are we in a position to pay higher wages? Well, no. But if we're earning good profits, one of the things we may want to do is the employees that are helping us make these profits would be to pay them a higher wage. And this is where productivity comes from. If employees are helping us earn this money, we should share some of that with them with higher wages. We can use that money to train and develop our human resources, have them develop more skills, so they can be paid more. If we're not profitable, we may not be able to implement the training programs. Profits can be spent on safety equipment to make the workplace safer. I guess government can come in with OSHA and regulate things, but if you haven't got the money to spend to implement put that safety equipment in, they'd be forced to go out of business or move to a place where those requirements aren't there. So we can use our money for that. We can pay shareholders. Okay, this is to reward the risk takers who invested in our business. Now, shareholders won't put that money under the mattress. They will reinvest those dividends and have capital for new startup businesses and new innovations and new ideas. We can spend money on research and development to invent new products and improve existing products. The pharmaceutical companies that come under so much criticism for charging too much for drugs, well, they take these profits that they earn and they try to invent the next innovation to help extend our life. You might ask yourself, America is about 4% of the world's population, about 300 million people, yet we invent almost the majority of the innovation that comes from drug development and medical innovation that extend and improve people's lives in medicine come from the United States. Why is that? I'd like to ask a politician why that 4% produce 50-60% of the medical innovation. Why doesn't the rest of the world do that? There's smart people everywhere. Well, the reason is we have freedom to earn profits. Factors of production, we can, of course, use the money for profits for continued operations. We can add additional plant and equipment. We can bring in robotics and computers and better tools that lower our cost of production. We can advertise. We can spend money to inform consumers about what our products have to offer. And I like to tell a story about the microwave oven. The microwave oven was invented in 1971, or actually it was invented in the 40s or 50s, but it wasn't introduced until 1971. The first microwave oven was called the Amana Radar Oven. And it cost a lot of money, $500-600, which in 1971 would be like $4,000 or so today in real money. So, and the microwave oven came out, and there's the Raiders, Naders, or Naders, Raiders, and all the people that are trying to protect us came out. This microwave oven, it's a terrible idea. They're going to kill our children. They're going to kill our children. How can you nuke your food? And all kinds of predictions were made. And of course, it took a marketing effort to really persuade people, that this microwave oven could be beneficial to people, that they can prepare meals in a lot shorter time, and that it was safe. So it took a marketing effort to do all that. And so it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have the microwave oven. One of the things we could do is pay taxes for government services, and not all government services are wasted. We do need government to have a police force and a court system and an army, both to protect us from it's a tough world, and we need both internal and external protection with the police force internally and an army and a navy externally. So we have to have taxes to support that. Also, the infrastructure, there's some things that actually government does, like a interstate highway system, I-75, and sewer systems and things. I think government gets involved in way too much stuff, but there is a legitimate role for government. We can give money to charity. A little later, we're going to talk about maybe the advantages and disadvantages of that. But corporations do support charity with their profits or some of their profits, and if they didn't earn profits or decide not to give to charities would be hurt from that. Profits can be used for mergers and acquisitions, which actually create more efficiencies in our economy. And we could expand with profits. We can expand distribution, become a global company, enter new markets. We could retain some of those earnings to save for a rainy day or a new business opportunity. The last one I put is not necessarily a favored thing, but unfortunately sometimes we have to pay protection money to politicians. Story, Bill Gates kind of stayed in Seattle and inventing software that changed the world, made the world a lot more productive with their Windows and their software. And he was doing that and just stayed out of Washington and politics completely. And he woke up one morning and the federal government was suing him. Microsoft's competitors have been giving campaign contributions to senators and congressmen all over the years and to influence their government policy. And so now Microsoft is in the game, and they're giving a lot of campaign contributions as well now. So factors of production. They have, this is what managers manage. The factors of production are natural resources, which would be anything in its natural state: oil, timber, sand. In the Glass City, they take sand and make glass there in Toledo. Human resources are the employees, organization's employees. Capital, which is the money to finance the operation. So the top three are tangible. You can actually taste, see, smell. They're tangible factors. Sometimes in a service society that we've become, the non-tangible factors of production, which is this entrepreneurship, the risk-taking to operate a business, and information and knowledge. We're becoming more and more in information, and so really the talents and skills of our workforce are critical to the production process. So productivity is a measure of efficiencies of production, and this measure can measure a whole economy with a GDP, gross domestic product. It could measure on a micro basis, one firm or even one individual. And it uses the same formula, which is outputs, goods and services, over inputs, your tangible factors of production. So if you're going to be in the private sector, I know what everybody, whether you're sweeping up or you're the CEO of a company, you're going to be trying to improve efficiency and productivity. That's really what we do. It's a continuous struggle to gain more profits and be more productive. Well, how can you reduce or increase productivity? Well, you can reduce inputs, use fewer resources. We can increase outputs using the same amount of resources, or we can do both, and that's what companies try to do. They try to increase outputs and reduce inputs. Well, you may be asking, one of those inputs is human labor. So if you reduce labor, won't that cause unemployment and job loss? Well, it might in the beginning. In the short run, that's true. The company's efforts to become more efficient may eliminate some jobs, but the profits from that don't simply vanish. Sooner or later, that increased income would be spent on more consumer goods or new investment that creates new jobs. Obviously, this process doesn't occur instantaneously. Companies' efforts to improve productivity gains raise spending, living standards, and employment in the long run. And this is called the creative destruction of capitalism, allowing people to be free and to be more efficient. That productivity is not lost. Those of you, I'd encourage you to go read the iPencil story that's in Unit 1 under the instructor's material, and it's really a interesting story how a pencil, nobody knows how to create a pencil completely. It takes everybody all over the world to make that pencil that's available to you for a nickel a piece in any color you want. And it's the idea that having this invisible hand, having free men and women respond to their own needs, and they're really helping everyone to create this pencil. So the invisible hand, that concept comes from a book called The Wealth of Nations. In 1776, Adam Smith wrote that book, which is really what Capital is written by Karl Marx. Adam Smith's book on the wealth of nations is as important to capitalism. Well, scarcity is simply a lack of resources, and this is what economics really is a study of how scarce resources are used by societies and how they're distributed. Who gets what? And that is our definition of economics, the study of how societies use scarce resources to produce goods and services, the study of choices. In both macro and micro, people, firms, nations choose among available resources and options, and it decides who's going to get. Would the individuals going to make that decision, or should a central planner or governments decide who gets what, right? And so what's scarce? Well, everything is scarce, right? There's not an abundant. You can't think of any resource so how does that ration? Well, it can be rationed at the point of a gun, by force to tell who gets what, or it can be done by voluntary exchange under a capitalist society. So macroeconomics is the study of macro meaning whole, or the study of the economy as a nation. Microeconomics means the study of individual parts, such as firms or households. Again, price in a capitalist society is determined by supply and demand, and it reaches an equilibrium price. It's an amazing thing how it happens with no central planner. A price is found for goods, and that's called the equilibrium price. With competitive markets, you as a consumer prefer low prices, and me as a seller, I prefer high prices. And a sale cannot be made until they're mutually agreed upon. So at that level then, when buyers are willing to purchase precisely the quantity of goods sellers are prepared to offer, you have an equilibrium price. And as for consumer goods, the same reconciliation between supply and demand occurs in markets for money, and the price of money is interest rates, and wages for labor. So the price sets labor, money, and prices for any goods and resources. You can regulate the consumption by the up and down of the price. Well, corporate social responsibility is the notion that corporations have an obligation to constituent groups. That's a big word. A constituent group is somebody with a special interest. In other words, a special interest group. You as college students would be a constituent group for a higher education. You would like more federal and state dollars to go into public higher education to keep your tuitions lower, or you'd be for more financial aid to allow more students to attend college. So that's a constituent group, and there's many other ones in society other than the shareholders, and beyond that prescribed by law. So corporate responsibility is going beyond what's required by your own agreements or what the law is. So let's say the EPA comes out with a law that says you have to be under 100 parts or at 100 parts per billion or under of this carcinogen that your plant emits. And so you're at right now 120 parts per billion. So you have to buy the scrubbers and the technology to lower. So you lower it right down and you get it at 100 parts per billion. Are you socially responsible? Well, under my definition, no. Because you've just met the law. You have to meet the law. Now, if you continue to spend money to reduce your emissions and your pollutants, and you bring that down to 80 parts per billion, now you really you've gone beyond what's required, and you are more socially responsible. You're acting in a socially responsible manner. So would you favor social responsibility or not? Well, most textbooks today, they don't even consider the other side, that there's issues that you should not adopt this idea of social responsibility. In your readings, again, you can read Milton Friedman's on social responsibility. He's against it. So, but arguments for social responsibility would be it is seen as unavoidable I don't think that's a very good argument. It says businesses has to tackle, has the resources, have the money. Well, I don't know that that's a good argument, but it is true. Companies like Walmart and Microsoft have more resources, more capitalized than maybe Peru and countries in subcontinental Africa, Uganda. Definitely Microsoft would have more money than Uganda. So they might have the resources to do that. A better society means a better environment for doing business. Well, this is a pretty good argument, I think. Let's say that one of the things that's really costing business a lot of money is substance abuse among their employees. Drugs and alcohol cost business billions of dollars. Well, if they invest in some treatment for substance abuse, some clinics that really help people and help society, well, that may help them as well because they're getting employees from society themselves. Hopefully they're not getting those employees right out of the drug clinic, but if a more sobriety of the society would help their business as well. Corporate social action may prevent government intervention. Well, if a corporation itself decides to get down to 80 parts per billion and do it voluntarily, perhaps the EPA won't come out with stricter regulations, so that may be a good reason. But probably the best reason I've left for last here, it makes a better public relations effort, can improve a firm's image, and actually you can tie in your public relations or your charitable work with a product tie-in. I think American Express does a very good job of this. At Christmas time, they have a campaign that's a charge for hunger. If you will use your American Express card when you're doing your Christmas shopping, you can do your Christmas shopping. The American Express will donate a portion of your salary to, or the portion of that their purchase, to the fight on hunger. So that makes a good public relations effort, and I think helps their sales. Arguments against social responsibility would be profit maximization ensures the most efficient use of society's resources. This is very true. When you're not concentrating on making a profit, you don't use the resources near as efficiently. You as a manager of a publicly held company is you are a fiduciary, okay, and you have to do due diligence. And when you choose as a manager to support a charity, instead of reducing the price of a good that your consumers could get your product for, or giving money to your employees, or investing in new product development, again, your profits are limited, and you have to make choices. Wouldn't some of these other choices maybe be better? And the third reason that you could be against social responsibility would be you might support a charity that's not favored by all your shareholders. No, I'm not against charity. I just think the individual shareholder could take a portion of their dividends and give them to charities that they support. Or your employees as an individual, you pay them additional salary or bonus, and if an employee chooses to support a charity that they support with that money, why should, again, the best and brightest, in this case being the managers, be the central planners and choose how to use the company's resources when an individual could? Well, the last time we're on a topic we're going to talk about is race and gender discrimination, and how capitalism has been accused of being unfair to minorities and women. In American society, it's just unfair. And the first thing they do is they take a look at the figures that they take a look at the Department of Labor statistics that show that white males earn more than females or minorities. Well, that's very true. From those statistics, they jump right to the idea that, okay, well, because business must be discriminating because look at the statistics. White males earn more dollars. Well, George Leaf talks about, could there be other explanations than that? And actually, capitalism is the most fair system. If you read, again, George Leaf's article that I have, it's the idea that business people in business are there to make money. The most important color that a business person sees is green. And they're in a continuous struggle to increase revenues and decrease costs. Racial discrimination imposes a cost upon business people who practice it. If a business person refuses to deal with a black supplier who could offer the lowest price or best service, he has imposed additional cost upon himself. Similarly, if he refuses to hire the most qualified person because of the skin pigmentation, this means that the business person must devote more time and resources searching for the best person to fill the job, and perhaps not getting as well qualified candidates. Hence, those who discriminate put a higher cost upon themselves and will be driven out of the market. In fact, the most competitive businesses can afford to discriminate the least. And that actually leads to the next article on Thomas Sowell. Why is there more discrimination in government historically than in private enterprises? This is very true. In fire departments or police departments, there's been more discrimination than in the private sector. Well, the pattern exists not because people in government are more racist, but discrimination costs government officials nothing, while it can cost, like George Leaf says, it can cost the private industry a lot. Competition needs to be promoted because the highest competitive industries can least afford to discriminate. Well, I like to give my brother-in-law example here. Let's say you're in a private sector and you're judged on how you manage your department, how well you use those resources, and how productive you are. And you've got a brother-in-law that can't hold a job that's pretty worthless, and your spouse will say, please hire my brother-in-law. But you'll resist because you're judged on the output in the private sector. In the public sector, you might be more likely to give in and hire your brother-in-law because keep peace in the family, and because productivity is not as important in the public sector. Well, why does this disparity exist then, Mr. Marshall? Why is it that white males earn more dollars than if this is true? Well, there is some other explanations besides discrimination. What about the minimum wage laws? And this prevents people from getting a start. In fact, the minimum wage laws are much higher in inner cities. In fact, my hometown of Detroit sets a $10 an hour minimum wage. Well, if your economic value is not $10, you will not be hired. And so that's a real problem. New business startups are thwarted. The government has regulation. A poor person, a minority, might be able to hire their car out and take people to the airport. But no, the government says you got to have a chauffeur's license, and you have to have your car's got to be up to standard, and many regulations would prevent that. Or if you may be talented at cutting hair. Well, no, you can't put up a shingle and say I'm going to cut hair. You need a barber's license. So, and probably the one here that's the best is public education is bad everywhere, but it's worse in the inner cities. And in fact, and again, my city of Detroit, the highest technology they have in the school is the metal detectors going into that school. So if you're not, the more you know in a capitalist society, the further you'll go. So if you're being shortchanged by public education, then how can you blame business for that? Well, again, women earn fewer dollars than men. Why is that? And why, again, the Department of Labor statistics are undisputable. The average woman makes 76% of a male worker. Well, maybe discrimination is part of it, but I say there's sociology. Women are the primary caregivers, and so women make choices, and they're free to choose to get out of the workforce for a while or reduce their effort outside the home to earn dollars to take care of the children. And at the same time, when women are making those choices, the man that when he was single never accepted an hour of overtime. But now that he's got a new baby, and a wife at home to support, he's taking every hour of overtime he can get, maybe even taking a second job. So it's just the way people act in a free society. Also, seniority. It's amazing to me how women will carry union yes signs, because seniority rules actually have an adverse impact on women, because women are more transitory in the workforce. They will take time off to raise a family, to have children. Well, they re-enter the workforce and they've lost seniority. So male workers would be paid more based on their seniority, if that's how it's set up. Women do much better if it's based on performance and not seniority. Women have a harder time finding a mentor. This is very true, and mentorships are real critical in the advancement into management. Forbes magazine did a study on how the top CEOs and presidents of our largest companies, like 93%, said that key mentorships were critical in their development into those jobs. Well, I'm a 50-something middle manager, and a recent graduate, a 25-year-old male, comes out of college, and I take an interest in him, and I take him to lunch, show him the ropes, socialize him into the company. Well, that's thought of as good mentorship. But I take a 50-something middle manager, takes a 25-year-old female college graduate under their wings, and that's thought of as a dirty old man. And well, you think, well, that problem will be solved by there's more and more women in middle management, which is true enough. But a 50-year-old woman often will see that 25-year-old woman as a threat and not really help them along. They pull the ladder up. The next factor here is not as big a factor, but the statistics show that workplace deaths are done mainly by men. They get the jobs as miners or on skyscrapers, and and those jobs pay a premium. I'm not going to go on top of a skyscraper hundreds of feet, no matter what they pay me. But women actually will select, right in college, jobs that allow for childcare. Women choose to get into elementary education, not because they're going to get rich, because they'll have the summers off and have flexibility to raise a family. And even though those jobs don't make as much salary as a computer engineer would, they would allow for that flexibility for families, and that's more important than additional wages sometimes, because women know that a computer engineer is going to make double what a elementary education teacher does. But the computer engineer can't leave the workforce for 3 years to start a family and go back in. Well, a elementary educator can. Finger painting doesn't change too much. So that's the job selection that women will choose. That has a much greater impact on wages, on these factors, I think, than the last one down here. But yes, there is sexism, and there is racial discrimination, but I think to jump that's the only conclusion of why this disparity exists, I think is wrong-headed.